My dad runs this city. Don't touch me! The sharp smack of a palm meeting skin ricocheted through the Providence municipal courtroom. Officer Collins, Judge Frank Caprio's trusted bailiff of over a decade, staggered back, stunned not by the strength of the blow, but by the audacity behind it. 19-year-old Amelia Rhodess stood trembling, fury burning in her eyes, convinced beyond doubt that the rules simply did not apply to her. She truly believed she was untouchable. She was about to learn she wasn't. Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable case, you're watching Case Closed, so make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story is about to take a turn no one saw coming. What Amelia didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that 3 days earlier, her father, Mayor Daniel Rhodess, had called the court. A single phone call that would upend every assumption Amelia had ever made about power, privilege, and protection. The mayor's message was short and shocking. No special treatment. I'm done shielding her. And with that, the safety net Amelia believed would always catch her was gone.
She had nearly struck a 72-year-old disabled veteran in a crosswalk. Harold Jenkins, 3 tours in Vietnam, partial paralysis from a helicopter crash in 1972, had been crossing legally when Amelia's convertible came within inches of ending his life. She had screamed at him to move faster, then screamed at the responding officer that her father would bury his career. But now, in the space of 3 seconds, she had added assault on the court officer to her charges. Tell us where you're watching from, because what happened next in this Providence courtroom became one of the most viewed moments in the history of this channel. The clock showed 10:11 a.m. Thursday morning. Case number 2026 CIV 5518 had just become something far more serious, and a young woman who believed her last name made her untouchable was about to discover what accountability actually looks like. Officer Collins touched his cheek, then looked at Judge Caprio. The courtroom was silent. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly. He set them on the bench with the kind of deliberate motion that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Miss Rhodess, I'm going to give you exactly one opportunity to apologize to Officer Collins before I add assault on a court officer to your existing charges. Amelia's chin lifted. I'm not apologizing for anything. He grabbed my arm. He was directing you to the defendant's table. That is his job. His job is to serve my father's city, not to touch me. Miss Rhodess, this is your final warning. My dad is the mayor. Do you understand that? The mayor? One phone call and you're… Mr. Hart, please add assault on a court officer and contempt of court to the defendant's charges. The clerk nodded grimly and began writing. 10:13 a.m. Assault on court officer added to charges. Contempt of court added. Defendant showing no remorse. Bailiff Officer Collins confirmed. Uninjured but visibly shaken. This is ridiculous, Amelia said. My father will end this hearing in 5 minutes. Your father isn't here, Miss Rhodess. He will be, and when he arrives, you'll understand exactly how much trouble you're in. Judge Caprio studied the young woman in front of him. 19 years old, no prior criminal convictions, but a pattern in her file that painted a troubling picture. Complaints dismissed, incidents buried, a lifetime of problems that had mysteriously evaporated before they could become consequences. Let me read you your original charges, Miss Rhodess. Miss Hart, the clerk adjusted her microphone. Case number 2026 CIV 5518. Original charges, reckless endangerment, failure to yield to a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk. Additional charges as of 10:13 a.m. Assault on a court officer, contempt of court. Those charges are fake, Amelia said. The old man was walking too slow and your bailiff shouldn't have touched me. The confidence in Amelia's voice was a performance. Judge Caprio had spent decades reading defendants, and he could see the fear underneath the bravado. This was a young woman who had never faced a situation her father couldn't fix. The unfamiliarity of accountability was making her desperate. Miss Rhodess, let me ask you something. When you struck Officer Collins, what did you think would happen? I thought he'd back off, and when he didn't, I figured my dad would handle it like he always does.
How exactly does your father handle situations like this?
Amelia smiled. It was the kind of smile that suggested she was sharing a joke that only powerful people understood. My dad controls this courthouse. He controls the police. He controls everything in this city. One word from him, and problems disappear. Text screenshot, submitted as evidence, from Amelia to friend. Dated that morning, 9:47 a.m. On my way to court, some bear tried to tell me where to stand. I'm going to handle him when I get there. My dad owns these people. Judge Caprio read the text aloud. Amelia's smile flickered. That text was private. It was submitted as evidence by an anonymous source. The question is whether it accurately reflects your intentions this morning. I didn't mean I was going to hit him. I'm going to handle him.
What did you mean, Ms. Rhodess?
Amelia was quiet for the first time since the hearing began.
I asked you a question.
I meant I would make sure he knew who I was, who my father was.
And you believe that would protect you from consequences?
It always has before. The side door opened. A man walked into the courtroom. He was in his mid-50s, with the kind of posture that suggested years of public appearances and press conferences. But today, his shoulders were curved inward. His face carried an expression that Amelia had clearly never seen before. Mayor Daniel Rhodes looked broken.
Your Honor, he said quietly, may I approach?
You may. The mayor walked past his daughter without looking at her. Amelia's confident posture crumbled. Dad, what are you doing here? Did you come to stop this? He didn't respond. 10:27 a.m. Mayor Daniel Rhodes enters courtroom. Defendant appears confused. Mayor requests permission to observe and address the court. Dad, tell them who I am. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Mayor Rhodes finally turned to face his daughter. Amelia, I need you to be quiet and listen. Not argue, not explain. Listen. But I said listen. The word cracked through the courtroom like a whip. Amelia fell silent. Judge Caprio watched the exchange carefully. Mayor Rhodes, you said you wanted to address the court. I'll give you that opportunity after we hear testimony from the responding officer. Officer Turner. Officer Malik Turner took the witness stand. He was the officer who had responded to the crosswalk incident 2 weeks earlier. Officer Turner, can you describe what you observed when you arrived at the scene? Yes, Your Honor. I responded to a call about a near collision at the crosswalk on Westminster Street. When I arrived, I found Mr. Jenkins, the victim, on the sidewalk. He was in his wheelchair, visibly shaken. Several bystanders were trying to calm him down. What was his condition? He was trembling, Your Honor. He told me that a vehicle had come so close to hitting him that he felt the wind from it pass his face. He said if his chair had been 6 inches further into the crosswalk, he would have been killed.
Did you locate the defendant?
Yes, Miss Rhodes had pulled her vehicle to the side of the road, about half a block away. When I approached, she immediately told me that her father was the mayor and that I should think very carefully about my next move. Bodycam audio excerpt. Officer Turner, 3:42 p.m. Ma'am, I need to see your license and registration. Do you have any idea who my father is? Ma'am, regardless of who your father is, I need to see your documentation. My father is the mayor of this city. One phone call and your career is over. Think about that before you write anything down. Judge Caprio let the audio finish. Then he looked at Harold Jenkins, the disabled veteran who was seated in the gallery. Mr. Jenkins, would you like to address the court? The elderly man wheeled himself forward slowly. His movements were careful, deliberate. The movements of someone who had learned to navigate a world that wasn't built for him. Your Honor, I served 3 tours in Vietnam. I was 22 years old when a helicopter crash took most of the function in my legs. I've spent 52 years learning how to live in this chair." He paused. "When that car came at me, I thought I was going to die, not in a war zone, not serving my country, but in a crosswalk in Providence, because some girl in a fancy car didn't want to wait 5 seconds. Amelia looked away. "And then, when the officer came, I heard her screaming about her father, about phone calls, about ending careers. And I thought, this is what I fought for? So that entitled children could threaten people for doing their jobs." Amelia's facade was cracking, but she wasn't ready to surrender yet. "Your Honor, I think this is all being blown out of proportion. My father will explain." "Your father is here, Ms. Rhodes, and I don't think he's going to explain what you're hoping he'll explain." Mayor Rhodes stood slowly. "Your Honor, I owe this court an apology and an explanation." "Please proceed." "For 19 years, I have protected my daughter from the consequences of her actions. When she was expelled from private school for bullying, I had her transferred instead. When she crashed her first car while texting, I paid off the other driver. When she screamed at a restaurant server until the young woman cried, I made the complaint disappear." He paused. "I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself I was protecting my family, but I was wrong. I was teaching her that she was above accountability. I was creating the person you see in front of you today." Voicemail transcription. Mayor's office to court, 3 days prior. This message is from the office of Mayor Daniel Rhodes. The mayor wishes to make clear that he will not be intervening in case number 2026 CIV 518. Any suggestion that the mayor's office has attempted to influence this proceeding is false. The mayor requests that his daughter be treated exactly as any other defendant would be treated. He further notes that he is deeply ashamed of her behavior and supports whatever ruling the court deems appropriate. Judge Caprio read the transcription aloud. Amelia's face went white. "Dad, you said you'd fix this." "I said I'd handle it, and this is how I'm handling it, by abandoning me. By finally being the father I should have been from the beginning." The courtroom was silent. Judge Caprio removed his glasses again. "Ms. Rhodes, I want you to understand what has just happened. Your father, the man you believed would protect you from any consequence, has publicly asked this court to hold you accountable. He has revealed that he has spent 19 years enabling behavior that he now recognizes as destructive, and he has connected your treatment of Mr. Jenkins to a family legacy of service that you apparently knew nothing about." Amelia wiped her eyes. "I didn't know about any of it." "Would it have changed what you did?" I don't know. Maybe. I don't know." "That uncertainty is the problem, Miss Rhodes. You should treat people with dignity regardless of their background, not because they might be connected to someone you care about, but because they're human beings who deserve respect." Judge Caprio turned to his notes. "I've heard enough to make a ruling. Ms. Rhodes, I'm finding you responsible on all charges: reckless endangerment, failure to yield to a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk, assault on a court officer, and contempt of court." Amelia nodded. She no longer had the energy to object. "The assault charge is the most serious. You struck a court officer, a man who has served this court faithfully for 11 years because you believed you were above the rules. That belief ends today." He paused. "Officer Collins, would you like to make a statement?" The bailiff stepped forward. His cheek was still slightly red where Amelia had struck him. "Your Honor, I've been doing this job for a long time.
I've been yelled at, cursed at, threatened, but I've never been physically assaulted in this courtroom until today." He looked at Amelia. "I don't want revenge. I want her to understand that I'm a person, that I have a family, a life, dignity, that I'm not just an obstacle between her and whatever she thinks she deserves." Sentencing timeline, case 2026, CIV 5518, days 1 to 7. Written apology to Officer Collins and Mr. Jenkins. Court reviewed. Days 1 to 90, 150 hours community service with veterans organizations. Days 1 to 30, complete courthouse respect and conduct program immediate. $1,400 fine. $700 suspended pending completion of requirements. Day 90, follow-up hearing to assess compliance. "Here is what I'm ordering," Judge Caprio said. "First, you will write letters of apology to both Officer Collins and Mr. Jenkins. Real letters. Your own words, your own understanding of what you did and why it was wrong. These letters will be reviewed by the court before they are delivered." "Yes, Your Honor." "Second, you will complete 150 hours of community service with veterans organizations. Not administrative work. Direct service. You will spend time with men and women who sacrificed for this country and learn what real service looks like." "I understand." "Third, you will complete a courthouse respect and conduct program. You will learn how courts function, why they matter, and what it means to treat officers of the court with basic human dignity." "Okay." "Fourth, you will pay a fine of $1,400. I'm suspending $700 of that fine pending successful completion of your other requirements. If you fail to complete them, you'll pay the full amount plus additional
Penalties. Yes, sir. Finally, you'll return to this courtroom in 90 days for a follow-up hearing. At that hearing, I will assess your compliance, your attitude, and your transformation. Do you understand all of these terms?" "I do, Your Honor." "Good. Because I want to be very clear about something. If you fail to complete these requirements, if you show disrespect to any veteran, any court officer, any person during your service, you will return to this courtroom in handcuffs, and the conversation we have then will be very different from the one we're having now." The weeks that followed were unlike anything Amelia Rhodess had ever experienced. She showed up at the Providence Veterans Center on her first day expecting hostility, and she found it. Word had spread about who she was and what she had done. The veterans didn't care about her father's position. They cared about the fact that she had nearly killed one of their own and then screamed about her connections. Case follow-up log. Week 2. Defendant has completed 18 of 150 required hours. Initial attitude described as defensive but present. Staff notes defendant seems uncomfortable with direct contact with residents, assigned to facilities maintenance for first 2 weeks. They gave her a mop. For the first 2 weeks, Amelia cleaned floors, scrubbed bathrooms, washed dishes. She was invisible to the veterans, just another person doing menial work while they went about their days. It was humbling in a way she had never experienced. By week 3, something shifted. A Korean War veteran named George asked her to help him with his physical therapy exercises. His daughter usually helped, but she was out of town. Amelia agreed, expecting it to be simple. It wasn't. George couldn't lift his left arm above his shoulder. The exercises were painful, tedious, repetitive. And George talked the entire time about his service, about his friends who didn't make it home, about the day everything changed. "You know what the hardest part is?" George asked her one afternoon. "What?" "People think war is the hard part. But at least in war, everyone understands what you're going through. Coming home is lonely. You're surrounded by people who have no idea what you've seen, what you've done, what you've lost." Amelia thought about Harold Jenkins, about the way she had screamed at him in that crosswalk. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not understanding. For not even trying to understand." And then there was the courthouse program. Amelia spent 3 full days learning about the justice system, about bailiffs and clerks and judges, and the thousands of small interactions that make courts function.
She learned that Officer Collins had a wife and 2 children, that he had once talked a suicidal defendant off a ledge during a recess, that he showed up every day to do a job that most people never thought about. She wrote him a letter, a real letter. It took her 4 drafts to
Get it right. I struck you because I thought you were beneath me. I was wrong. You're a better person than I ever was, and I'm sorry. Week 8 brought the meeting she had been dreading. Harold Jenkins was at the Veterans Center for his regular appointment. Amelia saw him across the lobby and felt her stomach drop. She walked over slowly. "Mr. Jenkins?" The elderly veteran looked up. Recognition flickered in his eyes. And something else. Weariness. "You're the girl from the crosswalk." "Yes, sir, I am." "You've been working here." "Yes, sir, it's part of my sentence. But that's not why I'm still coming." Harold studied her for a long moment. "Why are you still coming?" "Because I needed to understand. What I did to you wasn't just reckless driving. It was dehumanizing. I treated you like an obstacle instead of a person. I screamed at you about my father's position as if that made me better than you." She paused. "You served 3 tours in Vietnam. You sacrificed your mobility for this country, and I almost killed you because I was in a hurry." Harold was quiet for a while. "I got your letter." "You did. Your lawyer delivered it. Or your father's lawyer. Whoever. I wrote it myself, every word. I could tell it was honest. Awkward, but honest. Mr. Jenkins, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what you went through, what you still go through, and I'm ashamed of who I was that day." Harold wheeled himself closer. "You know what I've learned in 72 years? People can change. Not everyone does. Most don't. But some people hit a wall and finally look in the mirror. I think you might be one of those people. I'm trying to be. That's all any of us can do." 90 days after her initial hearing, Amelia Rhodess returned to Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. She looked different, not dramatically, no Hollywood transformation, but the arrogance was gone. The entitlement had faded into something quieter, more uncertain, but also more real. "Miss Rhodess," Judge Caprio said, "I see you've completed all terms of your sentence. 150 hours of community service, the fine paid, the courthouse program completed, the letters delivered." "Yes, Your Honor." "The reports from the Veterans Center say you continued volunteering after your required hours were complete. Is that accurate?" "Yes, sir. I still go 3 times a week. I help George with his physical therapy. I read to some of the residents who have vision problems. I didn't want to stop." "Why not?" Amelia took a breath. "Because I met people who changed me. George, who can barely lift his arm but still has more dignity than I ever had. Harold Jenkins, who forgave me even though he had every reason not to. Officer Collins, who accepted my apology even after I humiliated him in front of this entire courtroom." She paused. "I continued because I realized I had been living in a bubble where my father's position made me special, where rules were for other people, where I could treat human beings like obstacles. I don't want to live in that bubble anymore." Mayor Daniel Rhodess was in the gallery. He stood slowly. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" "Please." The mayor walked forward. 3 months ago, I stood in this room and admitted that I had failed my daughter, that I had spent 19 years protecting her from consequences, and that it had made her worse instead of better." He looked at Amelia. "I want to say publicly that I'm proud of her now, not because she completed her sentence, though she did, not because she stayed out of trouble, though she has,
but because she chose to become someone different. She chose accountability over entitlement. She chose growth over comfort. Dad, I'm sorry for all of it. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, too, for not being the father you needed.
If you're over 50 and believe real justice still matters, make sure you subscribe to Case Closed. Because moments like this are exactly why Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom became a place people around the world cherished. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his voice steady but full of meaning. Miss Rhodes, let me leave you with something. He studied Amelia for a long moment. 3 months ago, you walked into this courtroom and struck a court officer because you believed nothing could touch you. You waved your father's title around like it made you royalty, and you treated a disabled veteran as if his struggle meant nothing. Amelia swallowed hard. I was wrong about everything. You were, Caprio replied gently. But being wrong isn't the end. Sometimes it's the very beginning. The question is what you choose to do next. Will you return to that world of privilege and protection? Or will you use this moment to build something better? Her voice cracked. I want to build something better, Your Honor. I don't know exactly how, but I know it starts with treating people like they matter. No exceptions, no excuses. Near the side door, his usual post, Officer Collins watched quietly. Amelia turned toward him. Officer Collins, I know I apologized in writing, but I needed to say it here, in the same room where I hurt you. I am deeply, truly sorry, not because I was caught, not because my father told me to, but because I disrespected you. I acted like you didn't matter, and you did. You always did. The bailiff nodded, eyes softening. Thank you, Miss Rhodes. I hope you can forgive me someday. His reply was simple, but powerful. I already have. Judge Caprio lifted his gavel one last time. Case closed, Miss Rhodes. And remember, accountability isn't punishment. It's a gift. It's what allows us to become better than who we were. Don't waste that gift. Amelia nodded. I won't, Your Honor. I promise. The gavel struck. And inside that Providence courtroom, a young woman who once thought she was above the law finally discovered the truth Judge Caprio built his legacy on. Justice isn't about power. It's about who you choose to become.